Hi, it's Therese from Lostinpaper and I'm here again for Scrapbook Boutique, and today I have another card using the Concord and 9th Blooms fill-in stamp set and coordinating dies. This is an amazing stamp set, and I'm going to make 3 cards this month using this set, and they're quite different but similar, obviously, using the same products, but it's amazing what you can do with this set. I've decided to do some watercolouring today, so I have got some Bristol smooth cardstock and I'm using my Mft to stamp out the background image, which is the main image in the stamp set. It's a solid image, so you do have to work with it a little bit. My stamp is still fairly new, so the more you use a stamp, the more conditioned it gets, the easier it takes ink, the easier it is to stamp with. So by using the Mft, I'm taking the guesswork out of it. I can actually just keep restamping and until I'm happy with the background and how it looks. I'm also using my fingers on the back of the stamp, like to kind of smooth it out, and I do come in with my speedball, my roller, and that just helps get a good even coverage as well. If you didn't have a Mft, you could actually lay the stamp flat, add the ink, and then put your cardstock on top of it and add the ink that way, but the Mft certainly takes the guesswork out of all of it. Now I am doing some watercolouring today. My base colour here is a watercolour ink though. It's a dye ink, sorry, but it does react to water. It's one of the Ultra New inks and it's called Lava Rock, so it's a really sort of a deep dark browny grey colour. And now that I'm adding, I wanted this colour, I wanted it to be this sort of base colour. So now that I'm adding my Zig watercolours, I am having to be very careful not to get the water too close to my stamped image on the background, because it will bleed. It will reactivate and bleed. So the Zigs are really good for this technique because they have such a fine tip on them, and all I'm doing is adding the colour where I want it, picking up some water in my brush, and then actually smoothing out the edges of the colour that I've added, just to make it look a bit more watercolory. I would think that if I did try and do a wet on wet technique where I added the water first and then dropped in the colour, I would probably have bleeding into the background ink and less control. So I found that this way I did seem to have a lot better control. I wanted to make this card look different to the other ones, so this stamp set actually includes a lot of different layering stamps that you can stamp within the floral images and the leaves as well. And I wanted to show that you can actually use it quite differently by colouring the images yourself. You don't have to watercolour them. You could always use pencils or even stamp the whole image onto coloured cardstock, so you've already got the flowers and leaves and foliage in a colour behind the stamped background. You could even clear emboss this background and then add stamping or colouring that way. Really, the possibilities are endless, and it's a really fun stamp set to use. Now what I've done is actually done all my base colouring, my base watercolouring, and to add just a little bit of depth, I've come in with a deeper colour green, and we'll list all the colours at my blog. Obviously the link will be in the description below, and also a link to all the supplies that I've used today from Scrapbook Boutique. And what I've done is just added kind of almost a dot of colour directly onto the leaves and then spreading that out just a little bit to add some depth. The other way that I add colour to the main flower bed is by just using the marker, the Zig marker, directly onto a block, and then I can pick up my paintbrush with some water in it, not too much water, and that's why I've got this piece of paper off to the side, just so that I can make sure my brush isn't too wet. And then I can just pick up the colour directly off the block and add it to the centre of my flowers, just to give that little bit of depth to the flowers themselves. It's really, really easy to do. I didn't want to overcomplicate it because this pattern and this background is just brilliant. It's just such a beautiful stamp. The final way that I'm adding colour here is direct to paper, and I'm not actually using any water this time. I'm coming in with my lighter colour yellow for the flowers first, back with the darker colour, and then just blending it out slightly with the lighter colour again, and just trying not to touch that lava rock ink. I might have hit it a little bit here and there, but it wasn't. It was pretty good. I did toy with the idea of making these little flowers purple, and that would have been really pretty too. Alright, so now I'm going to work on my sentiment. This is the Mft Happy Greeting. So this sentiment is a dynamics, has 3 different greetings, a really kind of bold font which works really well with other sentiments in your stash. I've die cut it with some glitter cardstock, and this is from Doodlebug, and it's the sugar coated. It's a 6x6 set. Awesome bright colour glitter, sparkly, lovely. It's almost like all the colours of the rainbow in one little paper pack. And I've just mounted that up on some fun foam, which I die cut with the same word. And once that was dry, pulled my letters out, and then I die cut one of those panel. This comes in the coordinating set of dies that go with the Blooms fill-in stamp set, and I've die cut some green cardstock and heat embossing a white sentiment. This is from the Penny Blacks Snippets stamp set, one of my favourite, all-time favourite, most used sentiment sets ever. And I'm just gonna basically put all my card together now. It's pretty well nearly done. I've added another little piece of green cardstock just as a highlight to the bottom of my top fold card. Added some ATG directly to my panel, which I have cut down slightly to fit an Australian size card, which is slightly different to the American. Our A4 cardstock is slightly different, longer, and our cards end up a little bit longer and slightly thinner. So I do like both sizes of cards, but mostly I tend to work on the Australian size. I have added some double-sided tape to the back of these letters before I die cut them out, and I can just peel away the release paper, and same with the back of my sentiment. I have popped that up, the sentiment panel, I've popped that up on some fun foam as well, and then adhere that to the front of my card, and I can just simply snip the edge of that off with some scissors. So it's a really easy card. I didn't want to cover up this beautiful background too much, especially after all the work. It wasn't that much work, but after all the work I did in it. I have some Like Magic sequins from Neat and Tangled, and these are amazing. Like, they actually pick up the colours, even though they're sort of clear, they're clear iridescent, and they pick up the colours on the card that you're creating. They're really beautiful, and they come in a mixed size, so there's 3 different sizes in one packet, which is perfect. And that's my finished card for today. Thanks so much for joining me. I've had heaps of fun. Till next time, happy paper crafting. Bye.